Well, good morning, everybody. Let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Whitburn?
Here.
Commissioner Willis?
Here.
Commissioner Desmond?
Here.
Commissioner Anderson?
Here.
Commissioner Becker? Here. Commissioner White?
Present.
Commissioner McKenzie? Here. Commissioner Mathis? Here. Alternate Commissioner Von Wilpert is absent. Alternate Commissioner Drake?
Here.
Alternate Commissioner McCann?
Present.
Alternate Commissioner Browning? Here. So there is a quorum with 11 members present, and the meeting was called to order at 8:17.
Thank you. Commissioner Mathis, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you, Commissioner Mathis. Well, to start today's meeting, we want to recognize Commissioner Mathis for his 3 decades of service to LAFCO as he prepares to retire from serving on this commission. Commissioner Mathis's term ends next month, and we don't have a meeting next month, so this is his last meeting. Commissioner Mathis has been an institution here at LAFCO and has been instrumental in building the agency into what it is today. And he is also an institution in our region. Commissioner Mathis served on the San Diego City Council. He was chairman of the board of MTS and served our nation with a decorated career in the U.S. Navy. Commissioner Mathis, this commission is incredibly grateful for your many years of service. I know the staff is too, and I know Keene would also like to say a few words.
Thank you, Chair. And Harry, it has been such an honor for my 8 years here in San Diego to get to work with you. The very first day I walked in, Adam Wilson was on one side of me. You came up and introduced yourself and right away noted that we were both from San Francisco, in fact, from the same neighborhood over on Stanton, Frederick area. And I felt, wow, a kinship spirit indeed. As my predecessor told me, if there was ever a person on the commission to do a silent check-in and see if I was on the right path, you'd be the person. And those words proved certainly true for me. And I know from on behalf of all of staff, you've just been a sweetheart in so many ways in providing just gracious time and knowledge, drawing from, as Chair Whitburn said, your incredible service. We do have a formal commendation that I'd like to read into the record, but I also know that a couple of your colleagues have brought forward their own acknowledgement, and I'll turn this over to Commissioner Desmond and Commissioner Anderson.
Is this on? All right. Well, this is a proclamation from the county to Harry Mathis, and it's an honor for me, along with my colleague Supervisor Anderson, to honor Mr. Mathis. They don't make men like Harry anymore. During his 28-year career in the Navy, he served on 6 submarines, and he achieved the rank of captain and became commander of the nuclear submarine Sculpin. In the early 1990s, he was elected to the San Diego City Council and later became the deputy mayor. In 2000, in 1995, he was appointed to the San Diego LAFCO, where he served at this body, as was mentioned, for the past 30 years. He's been married to his beautiful wife, Mary, for 63 years and has had a wonderful family with 2 daughters and 5 grandchildren. So, Harry, it's really been an honor to serve alongside of you and to have, to be working with you and a person of your esteem in your career. I'm going to, before we clap, Supervisor Anderson has some words of wisdom as well here for Harry. Thank you. Here you go.
Thank you, Supervisor Desmond. For 30 years, Harry has dedicated his time and expertise to serving the Local Agency Formation Commission, LAFCO, playing a vital role shaping our community. Throughout his tenure, Harry has been steadfast advocate and thoughtful regional planner, ensuring that the decisions reflect the best interest of the community. You know, my staff wrote up some really wonderful things. Harry, let me just say, on a personal level, when I was a young man and I was getting out of college, you were on the Board of City Council, and I've watched your career all the way through. You've done an incredible job for us. You've always put your neighbors and your community and us as a region first. And I'm very disappointed to have to call you a quitter today after 30 years. but I would say that you set the bar high for a lot of elected officials. And I would hope that everybody paid as close attention to you as I did, because you're one of the role models I try to emulate each and every day, putting my community first. Be it proclaimed by all members of the San Diego County Board of Supervisors on this third day of March 2025 that they commend Harry L. Mathis for his outstanding service, leadership, and commitment to the citizens of San Diego County, and do hereby declare this day to be Harry L. Mathis Day throughout San Diego County. And let me just tell you that Supervisor Desmond and I worked really hard to make sure we got this to you first thing in the morning. Normally we give them out about 10 o'clock at night, and you got 2 hours to use it. But today you got a whole day, so thank you, Harry. Would you like to say anything?
Yeah.
I should say that this is the first time somebody has called me sweetheart, besides my wife. Well, you know, I did have a few words I wanted to say, but I'd like to begin by saying how grateful I am for the opportunity that you've given me over the years. You know, some people reach a retirement age, and that was about 30 years ago for me. You know, you feel kind of lost. And I think that LAFCO has given me a new life, an extension of a life that I love. And so I can't tell you how much LAFCO has done for me, because it's made me feel useful. It's given me purpose in my older years, and it's only with great regret that I finally have recognized that it is time for me to retire at the age of 93 or 92. Don't let me put that. So I sat down and I put a few words together that I'd like to give you. But before I do, I'd like to introduce my wife in the audience, Mary. She and I have been married for 62 years. We have 2 daughters and 5 grandchildren, and a great life together. We've traveled the world. I once sat down and figured out that I personally have visited 38 different countries in this world. We've been 3 times to Russia, once at this was back in the days after the Cold War and before Putin, I can assure you that, because if Putin were there, I probably would never have come back. But I've had all these opportunities, and I feel very blessed because of it, blessed of the associations I've had with folks like you and along the way. So I consider myself a very fortunate and very humble man as a result of it. So this is what I wanted to say. I want to thank the board for presenting this commendation to me on the occasion as I close out my tenure as the longest-serving board member in San Diego LAFCO's history. It's a great honor, and I will cherish it, and the opportunity to serve so long with so many outstanding public servants, supported by such a meritorious staff, has been a great experience. Having said that, I would like to express my gratitude to all of you and your predecessors about what you in LAFCO have prolonged for me, because it has given me the opportunity and pleasure to continue to address challenges and find solutions to important issues this late in my life. Working with you has given me a sense of purpose and accomplishment well beyond the customary retirement ages in the mid-60s. I have been blessed with a long life dedicated to public service, and thank you for extending it to this point. In saying goodbye, I must tell you that I don't plan to disappear before my time is up. My respect, gratitude, and best regards to all of you and your staff as you continue your vital tasks. Thank you so much.
we have our own commendation that I do want to read into the record on behalf of the commission, and then you're going to get to stay for what should be a lively meeting. So, again, for the record, I want to read this in, for everyone here and watching live and later on. So this is a commendation for Harry. Whereas San Diego LAFCO was established by the legislature in 1963 and responsible for overseeing the orderly governmental boundaries and municipal service areas consistent with community needs. Whereas Harry Mathis has honorably served LAFCO for 3 decades, beginning in 1995 as an appointed representative of the city of San Diego, and later as an appointed representative of the general public, 2000 to 2025. Whereas, and as an elected member of the California Association of LAFCOs, Harry was instrumental in formalizing the organization from volunteer to professional staff, and in doing so, providing a new level of needed resources to all 58 county LAFCOs. Whereas, Harry provided critical testimony during the hearings in 1998 to then Governor Pete Wilson, and I believe a friend of yours, Blue Ribbon Committee, the Commission on Local Governance for the 21st Century, that directly contributed to the advancement of LAFCO statutes as part of the Cortese-Knotts-Hertzberg Act of 2000. Whereas Harry's path began in San Francisco and included becoming a stellar student athlete at George Washington High School before enrolling and graduating from the University of California in Berkeley. Whereas Harry's path turned to public service after completing his studies by being commissioned in the United States Navy and rising to captain and commander of several submarines over a decorated 28-year military career. Whereas, Harry, you have earned the respect and gratitude of your colleagues on the commission and staff, both present and past, due to your thoughtful and principled approach in making local government accountable to local communities. Whereas upon your announcement to retire from the commission, LAFCO sincerely wishes you all the best in your continued adventures on your path. Therefore, be it resolved, all the members of San Diego LAFCO collectively convey their appreciation to you, Harry, and acknowledge and commend the value your service has provided to LAFCO today and for years to come. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure working with you.
All right, got to go back to work now, though.
Don't we all?
Can I give this to Mary? And she can hold it?
Please.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And thank you all.
Well, Commissioner Mathis, thank you so much, and congratulations and thank you on quite the volunteer career with San Diego LAFCO. We are deeply grateful. All right, let's move on to item number 3. That is our review of the agenda for this morning's meeting. Mr. Simons, is there anything that you want to touch on?
So no changes to the agenda itself, Chair and Commission. I do want to note that all of you should have a packet of additional correspondence before you, and I think some extra copies. They all relate to agenda item 6A and comments received regarding our draft work plan, and staff will cover the comments as part of our presentation. So other than that, we are good to go.
Very good. Let's go ahead and take non-agenda public comment at this time. This provides an opportunity for anyone who would like to comment on something that is not on today's agenda, but is within the purview of LAFCO. I have one slip here from Michelle Krug. Ms. Krug, please proceed up to the microphone and begin your comments when you're ready.
Very tall mic. Good morning. Michelle Krug, and just a suggestion, because this is my first LAFCO meeting, although I've been hearing and following intermittently over several decades the effect that it has on my community, so I'm glad to have the opportunity to actually be here. But we were so I'm blind, for those that don't know, and so having friends help, and they were looking for a phone number like on the website. So just a suggestion, if you could make it easier for people. I don't remember how we finally, I did leave a message, but it was on Friday. But just to make it easier to think about how like phone numbers do make a big difference for someone who's either elderly or blind, to be able to just reach people, because I can't do it by email or by leave a message for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Krug. Why don't you go ahead and stay up there, because we do not have any online public comment. But I know that you wanted to speak to one of the consent items. We're going to take up the consent items now, which are items 5A through 5G. And Ms. Krug, you submitted a slip. You'd like to speak on item 5F. Please go ahead.
Yes. Again, I live very close to Lincoln Acres and became aware of a situation. There's a lot of confusion about what part is unincorporated, what part is National City, et cetera. And I did become aware of this situation and spoke with the woman who is affected by it. And it was very confounding, I guess, that she is being told that she is in National City and needs to annex her property in order. She's having trouble with sewage, basically. She has a septic system which is failing. So she's trying to get onto a regular sewer system and was understanding that she had to annex her property in order to be able to go on to the sewer system. But if there was a way, again, that there's much more clarity about, I guess her house is literally on the border of where the unincorporated area is and National City. As far as we could look on the property taxes, she's actually in the county. And I don't know if it's she's being told that she needs to annex to National City, but it seems that there should be a way to just ask to be transferred to the sewer system that's closest or accessible to her without actually having to have her property annexed. Thank you.
Thank you. Clerk, do we have any other public comment on the consent items?
No public comment.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the consent items this morning? All right, we have a motion from Vice Chair Willis and a second from Commissioner Anderson. Any further discussion on the consent items? Seeing none, Clerk, please call the roll on the consent items.
Commissioner Whitburn?
Yes.
Commissioner Willis?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie? Commissioner White?
Yes.
Commissioner Mathis?
Yes.
Commissioner Becker?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson? Commissioner Desmond?
Yes.
So there are 8 in favor, 0 opposed. The motion passes.
Thank you, Clerk. That brings us to our public hearing items. We'll begin with item 6A, which is the proposed draft work plan and budget for 2025-2026, and we will ask staff to present this item.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm going to go ahead and get us started on this item, and I probably will enlist Priscilla's help as we go through some of the details, probably as part of the discussion on the dais. But and I think, Priscilla, you'll help me with the PowerPoint. We could stay on this first slide for a while. But nevertheless, this public hearing item for today for the Commission is for you to take the first of 2 concrete steps in formalizing a game plan for the upcoming fiscal year 25-26. This particular set of actions for you today is to take up proposed draft work plan to allocate your resources as you see fit for the 12-month period, and then separately a draft proposed budget to fund those resources as you see fit. I will note that the next step in this process, should the Commission proceed today with some form of approval, probably with 1 or more revisions, is for then staff to proceed with a formal public review and comment period, and then we will come back to you for your final and second step in adopting final versions of this as early as your May meeting. And just for the benefit of those who are watching LAFCO from the audience here or elsewhere, our budget process at LAFCO is a little different than perhaps most of you are used to seeing at your city and special district meetings. As an extension of the legislature, this commission is tasked with first identifying what your expense needs are for the fiscal year, and then apportioning those among the funding agencies. In San Diego, there's about 80 funding agencies that, by way of formula, pay into LAFCO. Now, this commission also chooses to budget other offsetting revenues, application fees, and reserves. And we're going to come back to the topic of reserves in just a bit. So with that roadmap noted, I would certainly offer up, and I believe detailed in the agenda materials, both of the items before you today, this draft work plan and this draft budget, are largely status quo documents in that we are primarily looking to just roll our current service levels and funding into the next fiscal year, albeit with some targeted enhancements. And I'm going to spend most of my time on the presentation focusing in on what those targeted enhancements are. So starting with the work plan, and I think, Priscilla, we can go to the next slide. The work plan continues to reflect what has been established practice at San Diego LAFCO, which is to identify 30 special projects and place them in some notional or priority order. Your staff goes about this resetting every year with 3 considerations in mind, right? So first, we remove all the projects from your current fiscal year that we have either completed or we anticipate completing by June 30th. We then look to move up in the queue all of the remaining projects, albeit likely in some higher priority order. And then finally, there's about 10 or so new projects commissioned that we add to your work plan, typically beginning in the second or third tier. So what you see before you on the screen, and again detailed in the agenda packet, these are our top 10 proposed projects for the upcoming fiscal year. They all will look familiar to you because they are continuations of projects that we are already in the midst of preparing. Some are closer to being done than others, but all are expected to require some substantive work as we roll past June 30th. So, for example, our municipal service review on the County Water Authority, SANDAG, and healthcare districts. While those studies are getting close to being presented, we do anticipate that they will require some substantive work going into the next fiscal year. You'll also see the advancements of a couple of white papers of interest to LAFCO, one on homeless services and potential governance reorganizations or formalization, and then also looking at public recreation opportunities in the unincorporated area specific to the City of San Diego's reservoir sites, a project that has the support of both the county supervisors of record as well as the mayor's office. And then going to the next slide, you can see what our, the medium priorities. These are the mid-area priorities that your staff is going to start working on in more depth going into the next fiscal year, and they're also where some of the new projects begin. So, for example, you'll see commencing with the service review on the San Diego Unified Port District. You will see a pilot grant program that we would like to establish. And just to pause here for a second, the Commission is aware that through Priscilla's good work and as well as staff, we've been successful over the last years working with the State of California's Department of Conservation on what we refer to as SALT grants. And we've got 2 already, and perhaps a 3rd is in the offering. What we would like to do as a more holistic approach is actually dedicate some time to looking at other grant opportunities beyond the Department of Conservation to help fund some of our activities at LAFCO. And in particular, we have a number of special studies or addendums to MSRs that may benefit and sync up to other interests, whether they be state or even federal interest, that we'd like to pursue. And the idea is, well, let's give it a 2-year shot and see if we are successful in bringing some additional grant monies to San Diego LAFCO. And then last but not least, the bottom tier of the projects before you, projects 21 through 30, we refer to them as lower priority in that they are either not necessarily going to be time intensive, for example, preparing updates to our local agency directories, things of this nature, or we simply want to get our toe into the pool and just start the process in the next fiscal year, knowing that these are likely going to be multi-year efforts. Examples would be starting, albeit with some caution, South County or the South Coast Cities MSR. So there are 4 cities, excluding the city of San Diego, that are all members of the port. In talking to some of the city officials, if we're going to look at the port, it makes sense that we advance and we start to look at the member agencies that are part of the port. So that study has been identified as number 22. And then I do want to just highlight, because we've gotten a number of communications on the topic, we've identified a special governance study for the Oceanside Small Craft Harbor District. Now, your staff, in coming to you today, has placed that as a low priority, number 26. Certainly, I anticipate the Commission will receive quite a bit of testimony and a request to move that study up in the priority order. Staff will be ready to discuss that option with the Commission as you see fit. So that's the work plan as a whole. Let me now just quickly transition to the funding mechanism, which we can go to the next slide. Staff, again, is coming to you in our estimation with a status quo budget, albeit with some enhancements. Those enhancements ultimately are proposing that our bottom line at LAFCO would increase by about 8.5%. So we would go from about $2.7 million this fiscal year to $3.1 million next fiscal year. So the net difference being about $250,000, which not only affects the bottom line in terms of expenses, but as we'll talk about, also the way we go about apportioning our funds to the local agencies. Now, there are 3 primary topics that are moving the budget needle, that $250,000 amount. First, we are budgeting a placeholder cost of living increase for staff. You have 8 full-time staff employees. That number stays the same, but we are proposing that you provide a cost of living adjustment. We've used a placeholder of 3.8%. A little context by way of practice, certainly the Commission can change direction on this. You typically follow the lead of the County Board of Supervisors in whatever labor agreements they negotiate with their respective classes. As of today, those negotiations continue, so what we have done is simply use the most recent one-year marker issued by the Department of Labor. Second to that, and that one change, that COLA change, accounts for about $60,000 of that $250,000 increase. Another $60,000 or $65,000 is associated with providing some targeted but merited step increases for some of your staff who right now are working at or below their midpoint on their adopted salary range. And then finally, the biggest number associated with that $250,000 increase is to allocate another $130,000 to our consultant budget to provide the monies that your staff believes will help us either get over the goal line on some of our existing MSRs with some technical expertise, whether they involve water economics, transportation, or healthcare districts, as well as to get our bearings initially with our MOU committed MSR on the Port of San Diego. So again, overall, we're coming to you today with a proposed draft that would increase the budget by $250,000. Now, also shown up on the screen on the bottom, you'll see where that $250,000 would be covered. Certainly the majority of it would be covered by adding it to your existing local agency appropriations. But we are also suggesting that the commission make use of your unrestricted reserves and help blunt the overall pass-through to your local agencies by knocking off about $100,000. So the full amount that the local agencies would see on average would not be that 8.6% increase in their annual LAFCO dues, but rather, on average, a 7.6% increase. Now, what's not explicitly shown on this budget, but certainly implicitly, there are other cost-saving measures that are reflected in the details of this item and provided in your agenda materials that are helping to curb the overall expense. That includes cutting and or significantly reducing other consultant usage, whether it be involving environmental service consultation, graphic design, and the like. So there are efforts to try to curb that number, in addition to the Commission's action last year where we eliminated a budgeted analyst position, and we went from 9 positions down to 8. This very last slide, there should be one more slide, hopefully. Maybe go to 6 or 7. Maybe not. Maybe I'm going to wing this part. Okay, well, winging it goes. So, Commission, over the last 9-year period, your overall expenses, your adopted expenses at LAFCO have increased from about 1.9 million to, as of this year, 2.7. So your budgeted expense, adopted-wise, has gone up by 23%. In looking at the rate of inflation over that same 9-year period, which is about 34%, you are coming in under a reasonable benchmark to assess whether your budget increases over the years have been reasonable. And while most of your increases over the last 9 years have been lower than this 8.6%, I bring this up because it is context to this effective, I would say, practice of not taking large one-year swings at adjustments, but gradually over time continuing to adjust, and that way you avoid a sticker shock. Even if we add this proposed 8.6% to the LAFCO budget over the 10-year marker, your budget expense would have increased or will increase by 34%, which is, give or take some percentage points in the hundredths, pretty much in line with the cost of living and inflation marker for the San Diego region. So it is that context that staff comes to today with some sense of justification, given I know that we have some funding agencies who are tightening their belt for their own reasons. So we don't come to the Commission with this increase without acknowledging some of our funding agencies are looking at doing their own cuts. Also, I want to point out there it is. So on the bottom here, you'll see our reserve total. So one of the things that this commission has done well before I was here, back when Harry started, was you've always been very good at managing your reserves. And right now, we project your reserves are going to finish at 1.6 million at the end of this fiscal year. That is more than 2/3 of your operating budget. So the question and the option to this commission is, you certainly could apply more reserves as you see fit. You typically put away about $300,000 to $400,000 of this total amount in what we call a stabilization category of committed monies. Certainly, you have options. You could simply say to staff, well, we don't want to do the increase, or at least the increase as you are proposing, staff, or in a hybrid, maybe alter that increase and or use some additional reserves to blunt the impact to the funding agencies. All of this is on the table. Your staff is prepared to go into detail as you see fit. And again, as I mentioned earlier, on the work plan, you have a number of people here in attendance who would like to talk, among other things, about perhaps moving up the proposed special governance study on the Oceanside Harbor up the queue. So all is on the table, and Chair, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Simons. Let's go ahead and open the public hearing. We have a few speakers here in the room who would like to make public comment, and we'll begin with James Johnson.
Good morning, distinguished guests, council members, commissioners. My name is James Johnson, and I'm a resident of Oceanside, and I'm a business owner of Oceanside as well. I've worked in the harbor coming up on 3 years. First, my background, I did 30 years and 2 months in the Marine Corps, so that kind of gives you, I kind of know some things. But anyway, hoorah. Anyway, priority, yes, we would like that priority moved up. Reason is public safety. And everybody knows public safety is the number one thing when it comes to a community. So the biggest thing is I've been talking to the staff down there about the maintenance, about dumping in the harbor. And one of the things is there are a lot of people dumping in the harbor. And we brought that to their attention. And the biggest thing is our divers. Our divers are bottom cleaners. They're coming in contact, they're complaining, they've been taking pictures. But one of the things is, like anything in society, if you bring something to someone, they hold it against you. So the boat divers, they feel like they're being basically punished for reporting things, so they don't report it. Liveaboards, there have been a lot of people living in that harbor for years. There's a liveaboard status, and people are abusing it. And the ones that are abusing it are the ones that are dumping. So like I told Mr. Ratliff, there's 90-some boat liveaboards, 60 live out of state, 30 probably there. Out of the 30, probably 10 actually live there, and those guys are dumping. Infrastructure. The reason why this moved up, they're saying it's so much money to fix this harbor. Well, guess what? Do the math. 957 spots, average of like $600 and some per spot. If your liveaboard is almost 1,100. Your revenue right there would take care of any maintenance in the harbor. But that money is given to the city, and the city runs the harbor. The old way, which prior COVID, LAFCO played a part in the harbor. During COVID, somehow that disappeared. That information was divulged when LAFCO staff came down to Oceanside, and there was a big discussion, and it was like, well, who changed it? Well, the city changed it. Well, did LAFCO know? No, they didn't. They found out about it afterwards. That is a huge problem when it comes to accountability. Everyone in here sitting down, you know accountability is also the number one thing. So for me being here on the short notice, and I thought maybe I should not be the first one up here because Liz should be the first one up here. But I think as a resident, and like I told the staff over in the harbor, as a resident, the cost is borne by the residents. So if there's anything that happens in the harbor, a lawsuit or whatever, that cost will be borne by the residents of Oceanside. I have a problem with that because like anything, if you don't put something at a priority and hit it straight on and let it like pushes to the right, the cost is going to be more than if you would have attacked it in the beginning. So biggest thing is that I would like that priority moved up because of public safety. And I would say, hey, for the one sitting here, do the hindsight, do the math, take care of the people first, and it'll go a long way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I have speaker slips from Liz Rea and George Rea. I'll let the two of you decide who would like to come up and speak first.
Thank you for allowing me to speak on the Small Craft Harbor District in Oceanside and the LAFCO findings. I'm Liz Ray, a resident of Oceanside since 1999, a slip renter since 2000, and an advocate for the LAFCO findings of our harbor. At our last meeting, the concerned advocates for the harbor were able to present to the chair and the commissioners over 129 emails in support for the LAFCO findings. These emails/statements were gathered within 1 month. Unfortunately, our time to get the word out of this meeting was much shorter. While walking the harbor and handing out the flyers, as you all have a copy of, the slip renters and the harbor users were familiar and in support of the work being done by LAFCO. Our issues have been going on for over 25 years. Millions of dollars which were raised by the Harbor Enterprise Fund, yes, we are an enterprise fund, to be used for the harbor maintenance, safety, and repair of the harbor are not there. We need these 25-year-old issues be brought out and resolved. We need to know how and why the city of Oceanside could change the designation of the harbor district and not notify LAFCO. We need a forensic audit of the Harbor Enterprise Fund. We need your help to make sure our harbor is safe for all who use it. We need accountability for our enterprise funds and make sure that they are used for the harbor and the harbor beach only. The city of Oceanside must take responsibility for the maintenance and funding for the rest of the beaches in Oceanside up to Carlsbad, not burden and make the enterprise fund, Harbor Enterprise Fund, have a shortage, and then say the enterprise fund has to be subsidized. We respectfully request that the Small Craft Harbor District number 26 be moved up in the draft proposal so we can get these matters finally handled and resolved. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Ray.
As you can see, that was my wife. Good morning. My name is George Ray. I'm a resident of the city of Oceanside, and my wife and I have had a boat in the harbor, Oceanside Harbor. In July, it'll be 25 years. During that time, we have seen, as the movie said, we've seen good things, bad things, and ugly things happen in the harbor. Several months ago, LAFCO provided analysis of the small craft harbor and provided those findings to the city of Oceanside and the HBAC, the Harbor and Beaches Advisory Committee. During that analysis, several things were found that needed to be corrected. Everything from the funding of the harbor to the changing of the designation and the coverage that the harbor covers. We, the stakeholders in the harbor, agree with the findings, and we're very pleased that during the last meeting, you stated that you were going to continue to pursue those changes. Again, today, I would like to thank you for your continual efforts to make the harbor what it's supposed to be. I would like to ask one thing, though. According to your current proposed draft work plan, budget for 25-26, our harbor has been placed on the lower priority, number 26. I do understand that each of the items above us are important and need to have somebody look at them. But we have been dealing with these issues for far too long. Therefore, I'm asking that the Oceanside Harbor study be placed at a higher priority before these issues are swept under the rug again. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Clerk, do we have any other public comment on this item?
We do have a couple online, like phone numbers, but if they would like to speak. So, no public comments.
Okay. Thank you, Clerk. We will close the hearing then and begin our commission discussion. And we will open it up to any commissioners who would like to speak on this item. And we'll begin with Commissioner Desmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate it. You get a lot of stuff in this item here, Keen, from reserves to the budget and everything else. I'd be willing to look at the reserves, I guess, as potential. I mean, that's what they're there for. It's kind of a shock absorber for, when things get tight, things get, heavyweight. So I'm open to potentially using some of those dollars if necessary, as long as we have a means or a ways to kind of refill or fulfill whatever our reserve policy is. I'm not sure. Are we way above the number for our reserve policy, or are we right at it?
Thank you, Commissioner Desmond. Your policy establishes a floor of 33.3%, and I think somewhere on that slide we had the number, I think it was like 67. So you certainly are above your floor.
Well, it seems like you got room to work, in my opinion. And I don't know if the reserve policy needs to be looked at again, but I think it's been working pretty well. But if we need those dollars to make things work, I think I'd be okay with that. And it's not really a motion or anything, but I guess it's more my opinion on that issue. And then also, I guess I live in Oceanside, and so and I realize we've got 25 other items that you've got listed ahead of that, and we just did a MSR for the city of Oceanside, and this sort of came out of there. I've talked with the mayor, I've talked with some of the council members, and unfortunately, it seems to be more of a mess for the city and the district itself. But is there any way there's sort of a partial look or some sort of a quick, instead of moving it up, way far? What is there anything we can do to help their issue or help? Dumping in the sewage is terrible. We don't want to keep that going on, or the safety issues that are out there. So, is there anything short of moving it ahead of everything else that could be done potentially at the same time that might help them move their issue forward with the city?
So thank you, Commissioner Desmond. So let me offer some context. The reason staff placed this otherwise merited item at 26, which by way of practice means it's a lower priority, wasn't that we didn't agree with the speakers that there is a concern, but it was our intention to give the new council that had been seated after LAFCO took action, I think in October of 24, an opportunity to get their bearings in LAFCO, kind of slow play the development.
City council or the
city council? The city council and the harbor district are the same. That said, going forward and moving this item up is certainly an option. The challenge would be there's a bit of a unique black box here that some of the speakers spoke to, which is the extent in which the revenues and expenses are being used. In particular, the expenses that are coming in, where are they going via to fund? That was a bit of an uncertainty when we were doing the MSR. I have been privileged to see some communications that the district staff and the city staff aren't terribly clear on all of the arrangements of where this money is going. So what I could offer up as a hybrid is that we do a macro governance study that does not a forensic accounting, but a deeper dive than what our MSR had done, bring it to you in some public notice meeting, and then you could say to us, okay, go further, or that's all we're going to do right now on this. That's an option. If the commission were to want to further prioritize this, I did have a suggestion where you could move this up to as high as 15, which is right now our legislative proposal with the UC Berkeley group, and simply move everything down. That would give staff some reasoning under our policies to be expending more time on this than it would be as a lower priority. And just for the benefit of because I know we have a number of new commissioners, the big threshold in your policy between your top priorities, 1 through 10, and everything else is under separate reserve policy. If a project falls within their top 10, you are giving me authorization as needed to dip into assigned monies in the fund balance to move it along. A project from 11 to 20 has the same urgency, but doesn't have the ability I don't have the ability on my own to go and supplement consultant usage. I would have to come to you, which I think might be part of the desire to do a check-in before we go too far in, and say, okay, maybe we really do need a forensic accounting here, and then that would be a question to you.
Well, is the macro study, is that, how time-consuming or costly is a macro study?
What I would suggest is we come back to you with a specific scope of work at your next meeting to define what we would view as a macro study, in that we would basically be utilizing only LAFCO staff resources. We wouldn't be using any of our consultants, present or future, for a macro study. Anything more than that would require some technical expertise.
Well, if the other commissioners are okay, I'd like to move forward with that macro study and just kind of a high level for this issue instead of moving it up, which if it doesn't really help, it doesn't sound like to move it up to number 15. And it's just, I don't even know that it's justified, but if that's a smaller, easier lift to do, is that gonna slow everything else down? I'm wondering, I just don't know the scope or how intense this is. As far as if we do ask for the macro study.
I think the macro study would be intense, but it won't be a game changer. Anything more than that, anything more than
Game
a
changer for LAFCO.
Yeah,
Okay.
in terms of staff resources. But if it's the will of the commission to provide that direction to advance, not necessarily on the priority order, but advance a scope of work for the commission to take a look at as early as your next meeting to further inform that decision, we can certainly bring that back to you at your May meeting.
So it'd come back for another vote. Okay. So do you need a motion, or is that?
I think that would just be direction.
I don't know if there's anybody else's. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Well, we certainly, thank you, Commissioner McKenzie. We certainly can communicate with staff. And I know that myself and Chris Kate met with a city council member somewhat recently on this very topic, because we anticipated it may come up for discussion at the dais. So they are certainly aware of it. And again, on a macro level, it's mostly LAFCO staff doing the work, not city. So I think we could at least get those communications going, and whatever we hear back, we would bring back to you at May.
And I guess I'm hoping that this macro study gets the city engaged a little bit more, and so they start working with the harbor groups and say, hey, we need hopefully a little spark in the fire. That's not a good term these days, but just to get a little more movement between the city and the harbor, I think, is more of the key than LAFCO.
I agree. LAFCO's going to figure their problem out. They need the city.
If you could be sure to use your mic before.
No, it's possible too that, that study in Oceanside just got put on the shelf somewhere. And I think maybe just a nudge to, we have an issue, we have conditions, let's move forward with it. But that communication always helps.
I had one quick question too about our reserves. If we ever put any of our reserves towards our retirement benefits and how that goes, do we have a policy on that, or a practice at least?
Yeah, so our pension costs are tied into SD Sarah, and so we both pay as you go and then pay, it's pay as you go, if you will, and that shows up in your salary and benefits. We do also participate in debt service on our other post-employment benefits that are provided through the county, which does cover not only pay as you go, but past liabilities that have been accrued. That's probably the extent of my knowledge of the details of how the county, which is basically our sponsor, game plans their pension costs. I know that there was a recent action at the county, I think, to extend the period of amortization, and I could provide that as a supplemental just to give the commission some additional information on how the county is treating their pension liabilities, and we are part of that pot. Yes.
County.
Okay, this is an action item, Commissioner McKenzie.
Yeah, I have a couple questions just for clarification at this point in time. And I didn't see it in this information, but it was there on the screen, that there was $120,000 for consultants. Now, is that in addition to whatever this, so what's the total? Because what I would like to see is that consultants be dropped out of, and I'm assuming they're in salaries and benefits, or maybe services. I'm not too sure where they've been plugged in at. So if we could have those as a total separate line item as to what you're calculating those costs are going to be, then, then we know whether or not we're staying within budget, because this way, there's just those 1, 2, 3 items.
Yeah, in Commissioner McKenzie, the depiction on the screen is just a short form version of a longer detailing on page 119 of your agenda packet, where we actually show the full general ledger accounts. And so if you were to look down under the services and supplies unit, you'll see an account, professional services, that for the most part is another way for us to say consultants. And the proposed total number this year was $446,000. What we are asking of the commission with that additional 130 or 120, I guess, is to move that number from 445 to 566.
Okay. I didn't realize what the actual costs were. I know bodies keep popping up here at the meetings every now and then, but I'm not sure just how many we have for what projects. So that was an interesting. And then the 3.8, just for clarification for my point, is that you said that was for the, I forget where it was, cost of living, but is that for the San Diego area, or is that for, the way I interpreted it was just what the general is for the United States in and of itself?
It's specific to the San Diego County, Carlsbad region.
Okay. And then I didn't see anything on Santa Fe Irrigation District. Did I miss something somewhere? Because I would have assumed it would have been in with Livenhain.
Oh, then it's probably perhaps just a sequence of us using abbreviations. So I'll ask Priscilla, is the Santa Fe Irrigation District part of the Solana Beach Del Mar region?
It should be. Part of their district is in Encinitas.
Then it's well, so then we've got you covered one way or the other. So we've got one study for the Carlsbad and Encinitas region, which is identified as number 4. And then we have an MSR for the Solana Beach Del Mar region, which is number 11. I apologize, I'm not 100% sure where the Santa Fe Irrigation District, oh, well, here it is. Yeah, so it's under Del Mar, and it's identified as 11B on page 117. And I apologize through the chair. So the full work plan is listed on page 117 of your packet, and then the full budget, both expenses and revenues in general ledger format, is provided as page 119.
Okay. It just seemed that the fit would be with Encinitas, since part of one of their districts.
Yeah. And I can
is within the Encinitas area, and probably Chrissy has some better comments regarding the boundaries of those two. That was just for clarification. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner McKenzie. One point that I'd like to inquire about, I appreciate your giving us information about the status of our reserves. It's good that we have significant reserves. Right now we have twice as much in reserves than is necessarily called for. And as you pointed out, some of our agencies are struggling and looking at making cuts, and anything that we can save in apportionments may well translate into something that isn't cut. If we were to knock off another point and bring that from 7.6 to 6.6 or something along those lines, how would that, how would you see that, or what would you be comfortable with?
Well, actually, that would be helpful if there was a particular percentage point that seems to meet the eye test. So right now, we're proposing a 7.6% increase. Roughly about $140,000 of additional reserves equals 1% to the funding agencies in terms of the increase. So if you were to go down to 6.6%, we'd be adding another 140,000 from your 162 million in reserves that we are going to have at the end of this year. So it's certainly doable. Now, here's the thing, and Commissioner Willis is the one who has brought this up every so often. One of the things that we have thought about with our reserves is we've got a lease for an office space that will take us through the next 6 years. If LAFCO were to ever want to invest in its own brick and mortar office, there's been discussion about, well, you know, let's keep those reserves going. However, as Commissioner Desmond has said, you know, we can both do two things at the same time, utilize more reserves and then have an active game plan to build them back up at the same time. And that would perhaps help with the sticker shock. So what I'm hearing is perhaps apply some additional reserves with some rationale, at least as an option for the commission to take up when we bring this back to you at the next meeting. If we leave the 7.6% in for the time being, we will at least probably get the attention of our funding agencies, and you might be able to get more comments from them, and that might help determine to what extent you want to further access reserves. But point taken on signaling at least our interest in blunting further the impact.
And I'm fine with leaving it in the motion for now, but I would request that staff, when you bring it back, show us perhaps, I mean, if we've got, if our agency standard is to keep, 33%, and we're at twice that, you know, what could we knock off and keep our reserves at like 50%? What would that look like? Or you could give us a couple of options so that we could try to balance healthy reserves with the demands that are currently placed upon a number of our agencies. Okay, so I will, Commissioner White.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to say, with respect to the increase, I am supportive of this. I'm also in support of both Supervisor Desmond and the chair's recommendations. And with respect to consultants, you know, back home, when you hear the word consultant, it's really hit or miss. You never know what you're getting into. But this agency has a habit of getting, I think, the best consultants who have been extremely helpful through all of the big ticket items. So I think while some might be hesitant, it's worth supporting in this particular case. And if you do look into brick and mortar businesses or buildings, I would like it put in the record that Escondido would be a fantastic option.
Second.
Thank you very much, Commissioner White. Okay, this is an action item. I'll go ahead and make a motion then, and that is to adopt the staff recommendation, or I guess adopt isn't necessarily the word, but to...
No, adopt is the word.
Adopt is the word, okay.
We have a draft resolution for you.
Okay. Adopt the staff recommendation, because it's a draft resolution. Adopt the staff recommendation as proposed with 2 points of staff direction. One, requesting that staff bring back some information on what a macro study into the Oceanside Small Craft Harbor District would look like for the Commission's consideration, and also bring back options for using more in reserves to reduce the increase in local agency apportionments under this plan. Is there a second to that motion? All right, we have a second from Commissioner Desmond. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Whitburn?
Yes.
Commissioner Willis? Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Commissioner Mathis?
Yes.
Commissioner Becker?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson? Commissioner Desmond?
Yes.
So 8 in favor, 0 opposed. The motion passes.
Thank you, Clerk, and thank you to Mr. Keene for walking us through all that. That will take us to item 6B, and that is the proposed Huang-Mt Whitney Road change of organization, expansion of Rincon del Diablo, MWD's activated wastewater service area, and conforming sphere of influence action. Do we have any commissioner disclosures of ex parte communications on this item? Seeing none, let's ask staff to present the item.
And we have Megan Trainer.
Good morning, Chair Whitburn and Commissioners. Analyst 1, Megan Trainer for the record on behalf of staff. Before the Commission today is a proposal to accommodate the development of one single-family residence in the unincorporated community of Harmony Grove, and of which requires a notice hearing due to an associated sphere of influence amendment. The proposal was initiated by landowner petition and seeks LAFCO's approval to expand Rincon del Diablo Municipal Water District's activated wastewater service area to include a parcel under just 1 acre with an unassigned situs on Mount Whitney Road. And the timing of this proposal ties back to the landowner having purchased this vacant parcel in early 2023 and is now getting ready to pull the necessary permits to develop one 2,280 square foot single family residence and attach a garage as allowed under the county's semi-rural residential zoning limit. And on the screen you can see a showing of the subject parcel, and this includes how it lies entirely within Rincon del Diablo Municipal Water District's sphere of influence and immediately adjacent to Rincon MWD's wastewater service area. And LAFCO independently confirmed that Rincon MWD can readily serve the planned development through an extension of an approximately 150-foot private lateral connection with an existing wastewater easement on Long Trot Drive. And the staff analysis and otherwise certainty and service impacts also lead staff to believe it would be appropriate for the Commission to proceed without a new municipal service review. To inform the sphere amendment, given that the current document of record is 6 years old, only 1 year over the 5-year deadline that requires a new MSR be conducted for sphere of influence amendments. This brings us to our set of recommendations for the proposal, which are summarized on the screen with 3 headliner groupings. First, a recommendation to approve the proposal with a conforming sphere amendment. Second, a recommendation to waive protest proceedings under Government Code Section 56662. And third, to waive L106 due to the limited scope of the sphere amendment. And fourth, make exemption findings under CEQA. And with that, I'll conclude my presentation, and I welcome any questions or comments from the Commission. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Clerk, let's open the hearing. Do we have any public comments on this item? Okay. With there being no public comment, we will close the hearing and we'll begin our commission discussion. If there is any commission discussion on this item, seeing none, this is an action item. Commissioner Desmond.
To approve.
And I will second that. So we have a motion and second to approve the staff recommendation. Seeing no further discussion, clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Whitburn?
Yes.
Commissioner Willis? Is he absent? Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Commissioner Mathis?
Yes.
Commissioner Becker?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Desmond?
Yes.
And Commissioner Willis?
Aye.
There are 8 in favor, 0 opposed. The motion passes.
Thank you, clerk. Let's move on to our business calendar. We'll begin with item 7A, and that is the draft proposed policy on financial accounting and internal controls. And we'll ask staff to present this item.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Chair. We'll ask Assistant Executive Officer Priscilla Mumpower to lead us.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Whitburn and Commissioners. Priscilla Mumpower, Assistant Executive Officer, on behalf of staff and for the record. Today before the Commission is a draft policy aimed at establishing rules and procedures related to financial accounting and reporting, and proposed as Fiscal Policy 102 or otherwise 102. Oh, there seems to be missing slides. Well, I will direct you with just my verbal presentation then. Okay, so the policy was prepared as part of the adopted work plan and incorporates recent recommendations from our outside auditor, O'Connor and Associates. It builds on San Diego LAFCO's existing practices as well as a review of similarly sized agencies and their best practices. The item today is for your review and discussion ahead of staff then refining the policy and bringing it back for formal consideration at a future meeting. So before diving into the specific provisions of the policy, I want to highlight two of the key recommendations that prompted the draft policy. So the first is the auditor noting in fiscal year 2021 that there was an absence of formal accounting, administrative, and fraud procedures, and recommended developing one to safeguard assets as well as to serve as a training guide. The following year, the auditor noted the lack of a formal policy for leases, and based on the Governmental Accounting Standards Board 87 guidance, and recommended creating a policy for lease arrangements as well as capitalization thresholds. So with these recommendations in mind, we've structured the policy with 11 key provisions. However, I'm going to scale my presentation to just highlight a few of the most notable provisions. Beginning with how we've directly addressed the auditor's recommendations, and first by establishing a threshold of $7,500 for capital assets with a useful life of 3 or more years and subject to annual depreciation. We've also addressed lease capitalization by setting a threshold of $40,000 for lease liabilities and right-to-use assets. Then we've formalized our existing practices, again, while incorporating some best practices after reviewing some of the policies of similarly sized agencies, and beginning with delegating the executive officer to manage day-to-day financial accounting records and activities with support from the commission clerk. We've also reinforced fund balance management through our existing policy F101, and then specified that LAFCO will continue to use accounts held with the County of San Diego as its central depository for day-to-day accounting activities, and also specified that LAFCO may open and maintain accounts with commercial banks as needed, so long as that balance does not exceed 15% of what is held with the county. We've also separately outlined that payments above $15,000 must be processed with the county, while payments below that $15,000 threshold could be processed through our commercial bank account and by LAFCO staff. We've also included provisions for fraud prevention, assigning investigative duties to the executive officer and/or commission counsel with a report to the chair if fraud is suspected. Notification to the full commission would be at the discretion of the chair. A placeholder is also included for investment policies, but are recommending to revisit that at this time. So with this overview in mind, staff is seeking your feedback on whether we've hit the mark or should make some changes to the draft policy before, again, coming back to you with a final policy at a future meeting. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Chair Whitburn.
All right. Thank you. Do we have any public comment on this item, Clerk?
No public comment.
Okay, we'll open this up for commission discussion. This is an informational item, so no motion is necessary on this one. Any comments from the commission? Seeing none, we will look forward to you bringing it back for adoption at a future meeting. Thank you again for bringing this forward. Let's go to item 7B now, and that is the Lank Poinsettia Avenue out-of-agency wastewater services, Buena Sanitation District, and we'll request the presentation on this item.
And we see Megan again.
Good morning again, Chair Whitburn and Commissioners. Analyst 1, Megan Trainor for the record on behalf of staff. The item before you is a request received from the Buena Sanitation District on behalf of an interested landowner seeking LAFCO's approval to provide extended out-of-agency wastewater services to a parcel within the city of San Marcos located at 806 Poinsettia Avenue. This residence is currently connected to Buena Sanitation District's wastewater service system via an earlier 1970s agreement. The parcel is just over a half acre in size and is developed with a single-family residence on site. Now, turning your attention to the map on the screen and noting that the Buena Sanitation District is colored in yellow, the affected territory lies outside of Buena SD's transitional sphere, also referred to as a zero sphere. LAFCO approved a transitional sphere for Buena SD in 1984, recognizing that the district's service responsibilities should ultimately be assumed by the city of Vista. This sphere designation included provisions allowing for unincorporated parcels in need of wastewater services to annex to the Buena SD until Buena SD merges with the city of Vista, such as this parcel in question. The purpose of this request is to accommodate the landowner's interest to extend authorization of outside wastewater services to permit the construction of an additional single-family residence and 2 accessory dwelling units, or ADUs, as permitted under the City of San Marcos's residential low zoning. This context aside, Buena SD's request for extended use requires Commission approval with LAFCO's own policies and practices, providing 3 sequential considerations to inform your decision-making. 1, do you believe that extending public service sewer is merited relative to your growth management interests? 2, does Buena SD have the capacity to provide extended public sewer? And 3, does an out-of-agency service request as opposed to annexation make sense? As for our analysis, and as detailed in the agenda report, your staff believes that the Commission can affirmatively address all 3 considerations. First, the opportunity for the landowner to construct an additional single-family residence and 2 ADUs consistent with San Marcos zoning provides a clear benefit in adding housing stock, which is directly germane to LAFCO's growth management interest. Second, the extension of Buena SD's wastewater sewer service to the balance of the affected territory is readily available and with capacity to serve without impact. And third, while annexations are the preferred method under LAFCO law, local conditions justify an out-of-agency service extension as the most effective means to provide wastewater services, given that annexation would not be orderly or efficient at this time. Notably, given that this parcel is located within the city of San Marcos, a land swap between the city of San Marcos and Vista would be unlikely at this time. Therefore, staff recommends the Commission proceed with the approval of the extended out-of-agency wastewater service authorization, allowing the Buena Sanitation District to serve the balance of the affected territory with standard terms and materially without the otherwise common condition of requiring the landowner to file a complete annexation proposal. It's also further recommended that the Commission authorize the EO to proceed with the exemption finding under CEQA Section 15319B and its cross-reference to Section 15303. This concludes my presentation, and I'll now turn it back to Chair Whitburn. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Trainor. Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
No public comment.
Okay, we'll open it up for Commission discussion, beginning with Commissioner McKenzie.
I just have a quick question. Where is the closest connection to Buena San?
So,
do we know how far from from the house to the connection?
in terms of where it's located, I can definitely verify that. As of current, it's currently connected to wastewater service to Buena SD. It's already connected the 1 single family residence.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Mathis. Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Mathis, a second from Commissioner McKenzie. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Whitburn?
Yes.
Commissioner Willis? Yes. Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Commissioner Mathis? Yes. Commissioner Becker?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson? Aye. Commissioner Desmond?
Yes.
There are 8 in favor, 0 opposed. The motion passes.
Thank you, clerk. Item 7C is an update on implementing report recommendations from the University of California, Berkeley to expand LAFCO's effectiveness. And we will invite staff to present this item.
And we have Joelle.
All right. Good morning, Chair Whitburn and fellow commissioners. Joelle Barilla, Analyst 1, and the item before you is an update on LAFCO efforts with UC Berkeley and other stakeholders related to advancing critical recommendations involving LAFCO's effectiveness in meeting statutory objectives. So during the March 2024 commission meeting, staff initially presented a report published by UC Berkeley's Agricultural and National Resources Department. This report examined the relationship between state regulators and LAFCOs in advancing the state's objective to economize and improve public water systems through consolidations with the key goal to ensuring safe and dependable drinking water and an emphasis on helping the most underserved communities in the state. So this report on the screen emphasizes the need for effective communication between LAFCOs, state water regulators, recommending regular meetings to address failing water systems, exploring collaboration, and integrate information from MSRs and state water assessments through formal channels or legislation. This report also highlights the importance of well-funded MSRs to identify consolidation opportunities, with LAFCOs prioritizing consolidations, facilitating mergers of small private systems, and seeking authority to initiate annexations for the greater service of efficiency. So staff is putting this report's recommendations into action through a joint legislative effort in collaboration with the report authors, other LAFCOs such as Orange, Napa, Sacramento, Alameda, Butte, and Santa Cruz, and community organizations such as Community Water Center and Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability. So staff, along with these stakeholders, is proposing legislative solutions to advance LAFCO's ability to ensure the timely and sustainable extension of municipal water and wastewater services to all Californians with the following legislative proposals. So first, we want to expand LAFCO's ability to initiate change of organizations or reorganizations under certain circumstances. Specifically, this would grant LAFCO the authority to initiate annexations to support timely provision of water and wastewater services. Number 2 is to amplify MSR's roles in communicating community needs. This would require LAFCOs to present their MSRs at a notice hearing before their commission, which is a practice that we already implement in San Diego, and while also requiring the affected agencies to introduce the MSR at their own public meetings. Third, address service barriers for mutual water companies and mobile home parks. This would expand LAFCO oversight to include mobile home parks and mutual water companies, requiring their evaluation in MSRs. Additionally, it would make mobile home park public information accessible to LAFCO and amend California Corporations Code Section 14300 to address oversight gaps. The legislative group continues to make significant progress on these efforts and is currently finalizing a fact sheet, a joint interest letter, proposed amendments to LAFCO statute, and a synthesized memorandum for efficient sharing. Once that is finalized, we will bring these materials back and share it with the commission. Staff does believe that the proposed legislative amendments align with LAFCO's mission to promote orderly local government and strengthen efforts to address water access challenges. We welcome the opportunity for the commission to discuss and provide any feedback to staff. And this does conclude my presentation, so thank you. I'll turn it back to Chair Whitburn.
All right, thank you. Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
No public comment.
Okay, we'll open it up to commission discussion if there is any. This is an informational item, so no motion is necessary. And I think we're good. Thank you again for the presentation on this. Item 7D is consideration of support for Assembly Bill 259 regarding remote participation for local agencies. Let's hear this item.
And Joelle's here again.
It's me again. So good morning, commissioners, Chair Whitburn, and fellow commissioners. So Joelle Barilla, Analyst 1 for the record. And so today before you, the commission, is a recommendation to formally support Assembly Bill 259, which was introduced by Assemblywoman Blanca Rubio for the 2025-26 legislative session. This bill seeks to remove the January 1st, 2026 sunset provision from the Ralph M. Brown Act, which was enacted through AB 2449 in 2022. AB 2449 temporarily allowed local agencies to utilize alternative teleconferencing procedures for meetings, which is a provision set to expire at the end of 2025 this year. AB 259 seeks to eliminate the sunset clause, ensuring local agencies can continue using teleconferencing for meetings indefinitely while maintaining compliance with public access requirements. So this would provide San Diego LAFCO continued flexibility, aligning with our current practices of remote participation during emergencies or for just cause. With this background in mind, staff is recommending the Commission approve the support position on AB 259, which is in line with the Alternative Action 1 as outlined in your agenda packets. And I'll turn it back to Chair Whitburn, and please, I welcome any questions if you have feedback. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing this forward. Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
No public comment.
All right. Thank you, Clerk. We'll turn it over to the Commission for discussion, beginning with Commissioner Mathis. All right. We have a motion to approve. We have a second from Commissioner McKenzie. Seeing no further discussion on this item, Clerk, please call the roll.
This is discussion. That was an error. It is action.
Oh, okay. Just checking.
Commissioner Whitburn?
Yes.
Commissioner Willis?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Commissioner Mathis?
Yes.
Commissioner Becker?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Desmond?
Yes.
There are 8 in favor, 0 opposed. The motion passes.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for both of those items. We'll move to item 8, the Executive Officer Report.
Thank you, Chair. So I did want to provide an update through staff or on behalf of staff with respect to the La Jolla petition to detach from the City of San Diego and incorporate on its own, which under LAFCO statute is referred to as a very special reorganization. So the ROV actually has until March 13th to validate all of the signatures, and they're going to need that time because one of the things that the petitioner group has done has requested a full count rather than a sample size. So they're going through all 8,600 or so signatures to validate and to see if they've come up with a magic number, which is 25% or more of the registered voters within this particular proposed reorganization. So unlike what I had noted, I think in my EO comments or my EO notes, we will know in a little more than 10 days or in 10 days whether they have hit the mark. Other than that, we are good on my end.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Simons. We'll move to commissioner announcements and requests for future items. We do have one speaker slip from Alicia Morrison. If you would like to come up and provide your public comment, please.
Alicia Morrison, request for a future item to rescind RO 1916, item 2. I would like to read from you the Lincoln Acres, a Centennial History book that was published. In 2001, San Diego County began to help Lincoln Acres. The local agency formation commission voted to stop supporting additional annexations and to keep Lincoln Acres as an unincorporated area of the county. In 2019, Robert Berry requested modification of incremental reduction of Lincoln Acres. Then Supervisor Greg Cox added 50.5 acres without survey for opposition of the registered voters. Looking at the LAFCO flow chart, A city annexation initiated with a proposal area of 10 acres or greater that has a disadvantaged unincorporated community located contiguous to the proposed area. Ms. Mumpower did verify Lincoln Acres is a disadvantaged unincorporated community. Registered voters in the contiguous duct are surveyed for opposition to annexation. Written evidence of the survey results to be submitted to LAFCO. Subject city conducts survey of all registered voters of parcels contiguous to the proposal area per LAFCO specifications. Survey must include a minimum of 12 or more registered voters. Lincoln Acres is a duck community, as I stated earlier when I met with Ms. Mumpower, and she did verify that we were a duck community on the map. And then looking through some of the paperwork and the process, I see a form of a registered voter protest form available. I've never seen this form presented to me when these 50.5 acres were annexed from Lincoln Acres to the city and National City. So I'm requesting that this item be added so that it can be rescinded. It was item number RO 19-16. Back in 2020, I believe, is when that vote was made. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other commissioner announcements or requests for future items? Commissioner McKenzie.
Yes, back on the work and the status of the various reports, we're still carrying items that have been on our agenda work program for 8 to 16 years. And I've talked to our executive officer when he was hired. That was one of my points, that we need to, get those dead projects off of our list here. And I know the hold it back was the fact that we did not have a policy for basically deleting projects that have had a period of time. This county adopted probably, our county supervisors can add to this, probably now 10 years ago, their policy for taking projects that were not, moving forward. And they were given a certain period of time, and they gave a list of what was needed, back to the county in order to process whatever the project was to move it forward. And that went to the consultant that was working on the project, as well as the engineer and the property owner. So since we're kind of married to the county, that maybe to facilitate getting these projects off and coming up with a policy as, how long do we just leave them sitting there? Because we have no information as to whether or not these are really moving forward, whether there's really been any kind of specific contact within the last 6 months, the last year, or what. So we need to come up with that policy, and my suggestion is that the staff really look at what the county has, and then you can always change it, but allows us to move forward on some of these dead projects.
Thank you, Commissioner McKenzie. We will leave that with staff. Are there any other?
Don't leave it too far.
Are there any other commissioner announcements? Commissioner Mathis.
I just want to say thank you again to all the commissioners for this wonderful send-off. And I brought with me, and I'll leave them with our executive director, the original of my application as an alternate public member dated April 10th, 2001, and copies of my remarks that I made earlier, which I'll also leave with the executive director. And thank you again. I really appreciate this. It'll be it's been a wonderful moment in my life.
Well, thank you very much, Commissioner Mathis. Seems like a fitting note on which to wrap things up. This meeting is adjourned.